Hello and welcome to the Late Night Cooldown. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and this is going to be about the horrors of ICE, the victims, and my commentary on the matter. So I have a script here just to ensure that I give you guys accurate information on the killings, and we're gonna dive a little bit into the original purpose of ICE, and let's get started. So, right now in Minneapolis and across the border, we aren't just seeing immigration enforcement, we are seeing the birth of a dual state, one world for the people, and a second lawless world for the enforcers. And if you think being a citizen protects you, the last 3 weeks have proven you wrong. Let's look at the facts. Case 1. Renee Nicole Good, January 7th, a 37-year-old mother, a U.S. citizen. She stopped her car to support her neighbors during an ICE sweep. The official word from the White House, they called her a domestic terrorist. They said she viciously ran over an agent. But the logic and the math doesn't add up. An independent autopsy found Renee was shot 3 times. The fatal shot, it entered her left temple and exited the right. The logic, if you're driving at someone, you get shot through the windshield. A side entry headshot means she was just driving past or away. In the video, there are multiple angles which now confirm that she was steering away from Agent Jonathan Ross. She wasn't a terrorist. She was a witness, and in a dual state, witnessing is a capital offense. Then just yesterday, January 24th, it happened again. Alex Pretty, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, a veteran caregiver. He saw agents pushing a woman to the ground on each street, and he did what any sovereign human with a heart would do. He started filming. The spin. DHS says he violently resisted and was armed. CNN's analysis shows an agent reached into Pretty's waistband, removed his legal firearm, and walked away with it. 1 full second later, the shots started. 10 rounds. Alex had his phone in one hand and his other hand in the air. He was disarmed, subdued, and then executed on a public sidewalk. Now, I need you to lean in for this part because to prevent this, we have to understand the architecture of how it's allowed to happen. Historians look at Nazi Germany and they talk about Schutzhaft. It means protective custody. In 1933, the Nazis used this to bypass the courts. They created a warrant that didn't need a judge. The Gestapo could just sign it themselves. Guess what ICE uses today? It's called Form L200 or I200. One of those two. Sorry. It's an administrative warrant. In a normal world, a cop needs a judge to sign a warrant. I'm just going to say I-200, an ICE officer or ICE supervisor signs it for an ICE agent. They have resurrected Schutzhaft. They have created a legal loop where they are the investigator, the judge, and as we saw with Geraldo Lunes Campos in El Paso, who died of, quote, neck and torso compression while being restrained, they are the executioner. The final parallel is the language. In the 30s, the term was Volksschädling. It means public pest. It moved people from human to vermin. When Secretary Chris Noam calls a mother like Renee Good a domestic terrorist before the autopsy is even cold. She is using that same frequency. They're labeling solidarity, the act of helping your neighbor, as a crime against the state. They want you to look away. They want you to believe that if you help, if you film, or if you care, you lose your right to live. But sovereignty isn't given by the state. It's inherent. It's inherent. And the moment we stop witnessing for each other, we've already lost the war. So those were the most recent cases just this month. When I saw the video of Alex Pretty status, um, he was disarmed before fatal shots were fired. Only yesterday, a group of at least a half a dozen men beating up and physically restraining one man. And then, because the current administration, with Donald Trump as president and as JD Vance as vice president, and all of the other politicians who are backing what ICE is doing, they feel ICE feels that they can do whatever they want. And I had a visceral reaction. Like, I was on the SkyTrain and I saw the video of him getting shot, and I had to step off the SkyTrain and take a moment to calm myself down, because my immediate reaction was horror, and um and I felt like I needed to cry, and I did cry like a little bit. Um in times of tyranny, silence is the oppressor's friend. There's a reason why they hide their face when they go out. And it has everything to do with the fact that they don't want to be held accountable for these crimes that they are committing. When government fails to do its duty to the people of its country, it is up to the people of that country to step up and hold these tyrants, these criminals, these terrorists as an ICE accountable. And being the United States' neighbor in Canada, we mustn't look away in their time of need. Despite the politics and the trade war and the tariffs between our two countries, as people, we must stand together and we must deepen our connection through unity. It breaks my heart to witness, but we cannot look away. We cannot stay silent. We must continue, watching what is happening and, taking the necessary action, however, however way we can. And I'm going to be honest, like, I don't exactly know what that will look like. I'm not an American citizen, but I guess for right now, for me, it's to talk about it and to use my platform to shine a light on the reality of what is going on. We hear, parallels between ICE, the Trump administration, and Nazi Germany and the Gestapo, but I don't think it is really hitting people what is going on. You know, what is going on? It's not just wrong. You know, it's corruption at its worst. When federal agents think that they have the authority to kill, you know, citizens of that country or innocent lives, we got a big issue, and this will eventually, if left unchecked, will lead to more control, more shootings. You know, we must not let ICE and the Trump administration use this to scare the people of the United States and the world. So let's take a bit further look into how ICE and Nazi Germany were, like the parallels between them. So on February 28th, 1933, the Reichstag fire decree authorized this thing that was basically protective custody. This allowed the Gestapo to arrest people without a judge's warrant. The warrant was signed by the Gestapo itself. ICE uses a similar administrative warrant, unlike a criminal warrant, which requires a neutral judge to find probable cause. Only an ICE supervisor has to sign it. In both cases, the enforcer is also the judge. The dehumanization Nazis used a term, and it meant parasites of the people. By labeling Jews and political rivals as parasites, they argued that killing them wasn't murder, it was sanitation or public health. Look at the labeling of Renee Nicole Good. Within hours of her death, the administration labeled her a domestic terrorist. By rebranding a civilian as a terrorist, the state claims it is at war. In war, you don't need a trial to shoot someone, you just need to identify them as the enemy. This is the exact same linguistic pivot used in the 1930s Berlin. In 1933, the first concentration camps were not death camps, they were makeshift facilities, old factories and warehouses, used to hold social outsiders and, quote, enemies of the state, indefinitely without trial. We are seeing the rise of facilities like Alligator Alcatraz, a high security makeshift detention center in the South. Reports from early 2026 describe 24-hour lighting, which can cause sleep deprivation, and sleep deprivation is a form of torture. Caged environments with no access to lawyers, inhumane food, reports of maggots, and lack of medical care. Both systems were designed to bypass the traditional prison system, which has rules for how human beings must be treated. To destroy a community, you must make it dangerous to help. The Nazis implemented the death penalty for aiding. If you hit a neighbor or even gave them food, you were treated as a criminal. The killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good served this exact function. Preddy was an ICU nurse who tried to help in film. Good was a mother who stopped to witness. By killing the witnesses, the state ensures that when they come for the next person, the neighbors will be too afraid to look out their windows. It is the state-mandated destruction of community solidarity. The Nazi SS was originally a small bodyguard unit. It grew into a state within a state that eventually told the German army and the local police what to do. In Minneapolis, we saw ICE agents override local police. They blocked local investigators from the scene of the Alex Pretty killing. They answer only to the executive branch by bypassing the local sovereignty of the cities they operate in. The Nazis didn't start with gas chambers. They started with paperwork. They started with warrants they signed themselves and dehumanizing their victims. When you see ICE signing their own warrants and calling dead civilians terrorists before the blood is dry, you aren't looking at a broken system. You're looking at a system working with the German precision to erase your sovereignty. You know, these insane, psycho people who are in the administration, who support what ICE is doing and ICE itself, were the same people calling for solidarity for Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm not going to speak too much on Charlie Kirk, but you cannot say political violence isn't justified and then go kill people for going against your politics. You know, these ICE agents are emboldened by this administration to kill American citizens. American lives are being lost directly as a result of an task force. Immigration task force. They are supposed to handle immigration, not killing US citizens and innocent people on the streets of American cities. There needs to be international outcry and international solidarity with the American people, because if the US falls, this brings an end and a major shift to the way the global politics will look like in the future. And global politics is already rapidly changing fast. The silver lining right now is there is time to act before things can get a lot worse. There are things we can do now. And part of that is speaking out against these atrocities and these terrorists. ICE is acting like a domestic terrorist organization. You know, this is not normal. This is not okay. This is inhumane. This is psychotic. And this is dangerous. Not just for the innocent Americans and innocent lives that are being lost as we speak and in recent past, like just this month, but it endangers the future of America, and it endangers the future of long-standing alliances between the nations. You know, the beacon of hope that America once was is beginning to fade, and it's beginning to dim. Lady Liberty's torch is blowing out. And we got to keep that hope and that light alive, even in the worst of times. We must not scare easily, and we must not fear consequences to justified and right protests and outrage against these unjustified murders. And we must not wait for the government to to act. We must not wait for someone else to do something. You know, we are here now. It is often said in Canadian schools that if I was in Nazi Germany, I would help Anne Frank. I would protest against the Nazis. Well, this is now, and this is the reality of the situation we're in. We have the most militarized, powerful country in the world, and we have a psychopath who's hell bent on destroying anyone who says or does anything against him or anything he doesn't like. And he's surrounded by people who are yes men and women, people who will not question, who are for his plan to destroy America, to destroy its alliances, to destroy its economy, to break up the community, to try and instill fear in the hearts of the people. It's we the people, not we the government. It's everyday Americans who have built what the United States is today. Well, and slaves, but you know what I'm getting at. In modern America, it's the everyday American who keeps the economy running, who makes America what it is today. And in times of darkness, we must shine our light, and especially as one of America's closest allies and uh, being its direct neighbor to the north, you know, let the American people know that we are with them and we, want to help. I want to help them in any way I can. Silence in times of tyranny is the oppressor's friend. Remember that. Our power is in our communities. Our power is in our voice and in the truth and in action, justified, righteous action. Be as fearless as Renee Good. Be as fearless as Alex Preddy. They slander these dead people's names because they fear that if people have really understood what was happening, it would be a revolution. Our ancestors didn't fight the Nazis in World War II just for this current administration to trample over our rights and our freedoms and our sovereignty. Trump is a con man. He is a wannabe dictator. He is an agitator. He's a divider. He is not who he portrays to be, and he is not as strong as he likes to make it out. I wish I had a solution for you. But I will say this: the solution lies in the hearts and minds of everyone. The solution lies in your actions and your voice. And what we do now will determine how much freedom and how much rights our children will have in the future. And I hope that by using my voice, I can give the generations to come a fighting chance. I want the generations that come after us to look back and admire our strength and our courage in the darkest of times. We say never forget and we say never again. Well, now it's time to put those words into action. If you haven't watched those videos, if you're not outraged, if you're not heartbroken, then I encourage you to go watch those videos. The revolution will not be televised. This means that the propaganda machine isn't going to show you, how much strength that we share together, how much in common we have. It's not going to show you the protests, the thousands of protests that are happening around America and Canada and the world, not just for the injustice of these killings, but for the millions slaughtered around the Middle East, the terror attack in Australia. If you felt like things are wrong, it's because they are. If you think things are not okay, it's because they aren't. We can say it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect me until it does affect you. Until eventually, if things continue the way they are, with unchecked power, the Canadian borders will be at risk of an American military invasion. And this is not a dream. Venezuela was a show of power and force, and it was an intimidation tactic and a money grab for resources. The United States was signaling to world leaders that if they don't suck up to him, then he can just go into their country and, kidnap them. Trump is a bully, and a bully doesn't stop being a bully until someone puts them in their place. If you're an American listening, get in contact with your politicians and your representatives. Make your voice heard and known, because it doesn't and it won't stop here. There is going to be more killings, more murders, more terror attacks on American citizens and innocent lives being lost. Don't let it be because you didn't speak up, you didn't exercise your rights and your freedoms. A life without freedom is not a life worth living. I'd rather die free than live as a slave. I don't want to blur my message, and I don't want to blur the facts with a excessively long video. Thank you for listening to the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine. And I hope you find the strength in your heart to stand up for the truth, for what is right, and for what is fair. And I hope you use your voice to speak against injustice. I hope you use your heart to feel how these victims felt. And I hope you use your eyes to witness what is going on.